Ever wondered what it was really like to be a Roman legion? Forget what you've seen in the movies. We're about to plunge into the brutal, disciplined, and surprisingly mundane daily life of an ancient soldier, from dawn's first light to the last drill. Prepare to have your idea of this legendary empire builder completely redefined. Imagine this. It's pitch black. A cold stillness hangs in the air, and then suddenly, the jarring blast of a tuba horn shatters the silence. It's 4 a.m. This isn't a gentle wake-up call. It's the Bushina, and it means one thing. The day has begun. There's no hitting snooze in a Roman legion. The moment that horn sounds, you and 7 other men in your tent or contubernium are scrambling to get ready. Within minutes, you're outside, falling into formation in the pre-dawn chill. A centurion, a man whose hardened gaze has seen a dozen campaigns, walks the line. He's not just checking if you're awake, he's inspecting every detail. Is your tunic clean? Is your armor free of rust? Are your boots properly laced? In the Roman army, cleanliness and readiness weren't just about discipline. They were about survival. A dirty tunic could lead to infection. A rusty sword could fail you in battle. Everything had to be perfect. Any infraction, and you'd be facing a penalty. Anything from extra chores to a flogging. After inspection comes breakfast. Don't picture a lavish Roma feast. A legionary's morning meal was designed for fuel, not comfort. You'd be handed a piece of asterisk. Panis militaris asterisk, or military bread essential. It's a dense, dry biscuit made to last 4 months. 2 was eat. Don't you get asterisk posca? Asterisk, a drink that sounds rough, but was a staple of Roman life. It's a mixture of soured wine or vinegar and water, sometimes with a few herbs. It might not sound appetizing, but it was cheap, killed bacteria in questionable water sources, and kept the legions hydrated and on the move. You eat it quickly, standing with your comrades, because the real work is about to begin. With your simple breakfast finished, it's time to head to the training ground. This is where boys were forged into the most effective fighting force in the ancient world. The grind was relentless and designed to build not just strength, but pure, unthinking muscle memory. You'd spend hours practicing with your tools of the trade. The gladius, the short sword, wasn't for fancy fencing. You drilled stabbing motions over and over, aiming for a kill zone on a wooden stake. The goal was efficiency, a quick, lethal thrust that conserved energy and exposed as little of your body as possible. Then there's the pilum, the heavy javelin. You'd practice hurling it at targets, learning how to put your whole body into the throw for maximum force. A volley of pella from a legion could shatter an enemy as charged before they even reached your lines. And let's not forget the scutum, the iconic rectangular shield. It wasn't just for blocking. You were drilled on how to use it as a weapon, a battering ram to knock an opponent off balance, creating an opening for your gladius. These drills were repeated daily, for hours on end, until wielding these weapons became as natural as breathing. But the physical training didn't stop with combat. A Roman legionary had to be an endurance machine. A standard part of the routine was a forced march, or ambulance. We're talking a 20 Roman mile marched. That's about 18.5 modern miles in, about 5 hours. And you weren't just going for a stroll. You did this carrying your full pack, the sarsana. This pack weighed anywhere from 62 over 100 pounds. It contained your armor, weapons, entrenching tools like a shovel and pickaxe, a saw, a basket for moving earth, 2 stakes for the camp palisade, and about 15 days' worth of rations. This grueling march, under the weight of an empire, weeded out the weak and ensured that the legion could outmarch and outmaneuver any enemy. What's fascinating is that a legionary was as much an engineer as a soldier. When the march was over, the day's work was far from finished. If you were in hostile territory, the first order of business was to build a fortified camp every single night. Using those tools from your pack, thousands of men would work in perfect unison. Some would dig a deep ditch, others would use the excavated earth to build a rampart, and finally, they'd plant their personal stakes on top to create a defensive palisade wall. An entire fortified camp for over 5,000 men could be constructed in just a few hours. This is why the Romans were so hard to ambush. They didn't just find a place to sleep. They built a fortress, and it wasn't just camps. Legionaries built the famous Roman roads, constructed bridges, and dug canals. Their engineering prowess was a strategic weapon in itself, allowing the army to move faster and control territory more effectively. Of course, not every day was spent on a campaign march. Much of a legionary's life, especially during times of peace, was filled with more routine duties. If you were stationed at a fort along the frontier, your day would be structured around maintaining the security of the empire. You'd be assigned to fortification patrols, walking the perimeter walls, and standing for hours on watch duty in a guard tower. Vigilance was everything. A moment of inattention could allow an enemy scout to spot a weakness or a raiding party to slip through. And then there were the less glamorous, but absolutely essential, chores. Camp maintenance was a constant task. Latrines needed to be dug and maintained, a critical job for sanitation and preventing the spread of disease in a crowded camp. Palisades would need repairs. Tents had to be patched, and the campgrounds kept clear. It was mundane, repetitive work, but it was the backbone of legionary life. Discipline wasn't just about fighting. It was about the orderly function of this massive military machine. While every legionary was a trained infantryman, the legion itself was like a small city on the move, and it needed specialists. Not everyone was just a grunt. If you had an education, you might serve as a scriber, keeping records of pay, supplies, and orders. If you had a knack for numbers and design, you might be a surveyor, laying out the precise plans for a new camp or road. There were also blacksmiths, carpenters, and leather workers who kept the legion's equipment in fighting shape. And critically, there were the medics, or medici. These men were highly skilled, capable of setting broken bones, stitching wounds on the battlefield, and even performing complex surgeries. The Roman army understood that saving an experienced soldier was far better than training a new recruit. These specialized roles were the hidden cogs that kept the whole war machine running smoothly. As the afternoon sun began to dip, the intense labor would wind down, and the focus would shift to the evening meal. Unlike breakfast, this was a more substantial, cooked meal. It was still simple, usually a thick porridge or stew of wheat or barley, perhaps with some vegetables, salt, and if you were lucky, a bit of meat or cheese. The men of each contubernium would pool their rations and cook together over a small fire. This communal meal was a crucial part of the day. It was a time to talk, to complain, to share stories, and to build the powerful bonds of camaraderie that would make these 8 men fight and die for one another in battle. They were more than a unit. They were a family, forged in shared hardship. After the meal, you'd finally have a few hours of downtime. This was when the humanity behind the uniform would emerge. Soldiers would gather around the fire in their small leather tents. UDC men mending their gear, stitching a tier and a tunic, or polishing their helmet until it gleamed. Gambling was incredibly popular, with dice games being a favorite way to pass the time and maybe win a little extra coin. Others would write letters home, their rough hands carefully penning messages to loved ones they might not see for years. Storytelling was common, sharing tales of past battles or news from distant provinces. These were the human moments, the brief respite from the crushing discipline that made this life bearable. But even this downtime had a purpose. Before turning in, every soldier had a final, critical duty, maintaining their weapons and armor. You would meticulously clean your gladius and pilum, sharpening the edges and making sure there was no rust. You'd check every strap and buckle on your armor, ensuring it was secure and functional. Your life, and the lives of the men next to you, depended on this equipment. A broken strap, or a dull blade, is a death sentence. This nightly ritual was a final reminder of your purpose and the ever-present reality of combat. Finally, as darkness fully enveloped the camp, a final horn call would signal lights out, and almost profound silence would fall over the thousands of soldiers. In your tent, huddled with your 7 tent mates, you'd try to get some rest before the tuba's blasted 4 a.m. signaled the start of another demanding Roman dawn. It was a life of unrelenting toil, iron discipline, and immense sacrifice. But it was this daily grind, repeated day after day, year after year, that created the soldiers who conquered the known world and built an empire that would echo through eternity. So, could you have survived a day in a Roman legion? It was more than just a job. It was the complete surrender of your life to a cause greater than yourself. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this glimpse into the Legionaries' life fascinating, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.